Pucks with Haggs is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
Welcome to another edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. I believe this is the 177th episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, so thank you, everybody, for tuning in, for interacting, for sending questions, for sending comments on the YouTube. Telling me to stop interrupting Mick and to let Mick just go on with his hockey stories and his hockey analysis. I definitely see one of those comments almost every single week, Mick, telling me not to interrupt you and to let me release the hounds with Mick Colageo and let him go. So we're gonna let you go today, Mick. That's my longtime friend and colleague, Mick Colageo. Mick, please tell everybody where they can find your work.
I read a blog called Rink Wrap. It used to be associated with the Standard Times in New Bedford, but now it's an independent thing. And the Boston Bruins have been so gracious as to extend me a press credential to cover the team under the banner of my own blog, and which is a wonderful thing because I never get sick of hockey. I love it. I love it at the top level. I love watching kids play. I love picking up a stick and skates myself. But that hasn't happened in a little while. We're going to work on that, though, this summer. Going to trim down a little bit.
Not only a journalist, but also a player when it comes to the game of hockey, Mick Colageo. I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe and get yourself a premium membership. Get all of my NHL and Bruins writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write columns 3 times a week for the Boston Sports Journal, so go to bostonsportsjournal.com. Get a subscription there. And you can find all of my writing there. Most usually file after games, so you can check out my day after report for the Bruins and what's going on there. In addition, before we get started, Mick, and we finally got a win to talk about. The morning after a win, we're doing this on Wednesday morning. The Bruins won on Tuesday night, so there will be some positivity. There will be some good things to talk about when we get into it. But before we do that, I'd like to just talk about Prize Picks and give them a shout out. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Let's also thank our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Mick?
Game time.
Game time. That's right. All right. Let's get into it, Mick. Very good game on Tuesday night in New Jersey. 7-2 win, decisive win, one of their best wins since the trade deadline, as they were saying after the game. And it was, Jersey pushed them a little bit in the second period. Again, the second period was not overly fantastic for the Bruins, but they did score at the end of the second period to kind of retake the momentum and just ran away in the third. That was really good to see. But, I don't want to see too many of these wins. I'm going to be honest with you going down the stretch, but I think for this one in particular, I think they need to sprinkle wins in every once in a while, just to, for the players to keep their sanity going intact down the stretch here, that they're not going into too bad of any losing funks, and they're seeing a little bit of success. And for this one, maybe this is even the last bit of real positivity for the season, the last real feel-good moment of the season. We'll see. But if it was, Mick, it was a good one. Michael Callahan, first NHL goal. Fraser Minton, first goal with the Bruins. Fabian Lysell, first point with the NHL point, first point with the Bruins. And I thought he played pretty well, actually, much better than he has in a lot of games recently. Morgan Geekie gets his 30th goal, so he gets to that plateau, which is going to earn him some money this offseason. Back up the Brinks truck for him. And Pastrnak gets to 100 points, which he was rightfully downplaying, saying, he's an offensive player. He wants to produce, but like what he's really after is not, points and awards. It's winning the Stanley Cup. Just your thoughts from that game last night, which there's really not much negative you can pick apart in it. Just a feel-good win and maybe the last feel-good moment of the season for the Bruins where you need some. And it's good to see the young players stepping up like they did. I thought that was the big storyline from last night.
I'd be flabbergasted if they don't beat the hell out of the Blackhawks tomorrow night.
They might, yeah,
because they just lost 5-0 to the Penguins, and I think they're like really there's another floor to this building, and it's below the Bruins. So yeah, great to see them rally, play for one another. I do think that the Devils have to be incredibly disappointed to have the Boston Bruins, a team that came into the night tied for the most regulation road losses in the league at 25. They came in tied for that with a couple other bottom feeders, and they laid an egg. They had that late second period push. They got their fans into the game, and they really should have taken it from there. And the Bruins kept to resisting. And credit to the Bruins for fighting back and not knuckling under, which has been so much of this season. Bend and then break, and usually a spectacular snap. This game a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago would have been one of those. Instead, it became a Bruins win with Middlestat threw the puck at the net. As they always, it's one of the oldest cliches, right? Joe, throw the puck at the net, good things will happen. So yep. He spun near the point and flung it, and it goes in, and it's like, holy crap, we lead by 2. We're going to the room up by 2, and it came out, and the Devils had nothing. And last night would have been a playoff clinching win for them. So I would imagine that GM, Mr. Fitzgerald, must be extra PO'd today. And they're probably going to hear it. But the Bees, now the Blackhawks with a 5-0 goose egg in Pittsburgh, they take the lead at 26 regulation road losses, and the Bruins are going to hope to make it 27 tomorrow night. I think they will. I agree with you about the sprinkling part. I am also uncomfortable about them moving down 3 spots in the draft, which is what could easily happen if you start playing well. Right. Which is right now that's starting to happen. Everybody's looking good out there, and they're starting to feel it a little bit, and it's starting to have some belief, and which is a nice thing. Thrilled for Callahan. I think that guy has been such a steady player, giving his all to build a professional career from Providence College ranks up through the Providence Bruins. It's taken time, but as Coach Mujanel instructed me, he has played his way out of the AHL. Some players do it, and one thing Muj says he can really do is tell when somebody has played his way out of the AHL. And he's been telling the Bruins all season, this kid's ready. And so here he is. And you know what? Every once in a while, something's going to happen. You're going to get beat to the post on a goal or something. It's part of being a rookie in the NHL. I don't care if you're 25 or 21, or 20 like Fraser Minton. But this guy could play. He's a good player, and he's going to be UFA. They're going to wind up losing him. He's Group 6. Yeah,
they probably will. But we'll see. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to be throwing a ton of money at him. He could be a potential option. Because I on the other side of it, I think there's some other defensemen that are kind of playing their way out of, continuing to be in the Bruins picture in the kind of role that Callahan would be in. So maybe he becomes somebody that, is a low rent, inexpensive option to keep around. We'll see. Just the thing about players like him in general is that you really can't get beat too much at all. You know what I mean? Because
right,
he's never going to make up for it at the offensive end.
Every blip is going to count against you.
Yeah, he's never going to be able to overcome the defensive mistakes by making big plays at the other end of the ice, creating offense, all that stuff. So he basically needs to be like the solid. You don't notice him unless he's blocking a shot or right. Throwing a puck away from the crease that would have been a goal, or taking the body and throwing a hit or something. Like those are the things that you're ever going to notice with him, or making a good penalty kill, having a good PK shift. You're not going to ever notice him really doing much, even though he had a goal last night and good for him. Every once in a while, they'll run into a player like that. But he's not going to be able to, erase his mistakes defensively by creating offense. So he needs to be, as close to
airtight, baby.
Yeah, he needs to be as close to mistake free as he possibly can be. But yeah, I thought he was really good and continues to be good. And he's somebody that, maybe they could keep around in a low rent sort of fashion if the contract is not expensive and it's, short term. We'll see. Fabian Lysell, like I said, I thought was pretty good last night. I thought he was like being more aggressive and proactive. And really that's what you need to see with him, is him using his speed and really testing the defense and trying things and, taking chances a little bit more than he had been, maybe playing it too safe, maybe, and that's understandable for a young guy when they come up and are trying to make a good impression that that's the way that they play. But I wouldn't say it was reckless, but I would just say there was definitely more, proactive like parts of his game that I thought were good last night, where he was really like trying to make something happen, which he has to do.
I would say he seemed so muted before.
Yeah. Like he was trying to play it safe. And like he's the kind of guy, he can't do that. He doesn't bring enough to the table to play it safe. Like he needs to go and make mistakes and try to make things happen. He's just not the kind of player that I think it's going to make him look good if he's playing it safe and if he's not taking risks and trying to make plays offensively because he's afraid to make a mistake or turn the puck over or whatever. Fraser Minton, I thought was pretty good. And it's interesting that, and you hear this a lot with the AHL call-ups, that sometimes when they get called up to the NHL, they're in the midst of like a crazy schedule that they were doing down in the AHL. And so when they get their like big call up to the NHL, they're not in a place to really show what they can do because they're just exhausted from whatever they just did, or the timing is really bad and they don't have their legs because they just come off like a back-to-back on the road with bus trips or whatever. And Sacco alluded to that after the game last night, that maybe the first couple games with Minton, we didn't see the best that he could be just because of like the way that schedule had worked out with Providence in the NHL when he was called up, but said last night was a pretty good indication of who he is and what he can be. And again, I thought he was pretty good. He's an interesting one, Mick, because he's definitely like he's more of a smart, safe player that like makes smart plays and can stand out a little bit more and can exist in that setting where he's making those plays and sort of picks his spots to really, take a chance offensively or try to make a play. But a lot of times you're watching him and you're saying he's, getting the puck in deep. He's making smart plays. He's, taking a short shift. He's doing a lot of like really intelligent things that show he's got a pretty good hockey IQ. And I think that continued last night as well. And, he looks like he's probably going to be a middle six guy eventually. I don't think he's going to be dynamic or a really super high impact guy by any means, but he looks like he could be a pretty solid player for this Bruins team.
I was about to say something that borders on the unsafe. So I'm going to try to phrase this as carefully as I can.
Okay.
At age 20, he reminds me of a left-handed version of Patrice Bergeron.
Oh my God.
He has some Bergeron type qualities.
He does.
About his anticipation skills of where the puck's going and how to hover, how to take a lane to forecheck, how to
win a battle too.
He finds his way to the. This kid is incredibly smart.
He is.
And instinctive on the ice, and he makes really good plays.
Yep.
He's got it just. I'm trying not to get too excited about this because you don't know what a player is going to become. And as we saw, Patrice Bergeron became this chameleon of a player who developed and changed his game over the years, even developing a one-timer before Pasternak took over that role. And Bergie didn't do it because he aspired to score like Alex Ovechkin. He did it because he thought the Bruins needed it for them to win.
Yep.
I mean, that's how he thinks the game. I think that's how Minton thinks the game. He's kind of like he wants to make plays that are the right play for the game. Like he's looking at it from overhead.
Yeah.
And this kid, and I'm looking at him saying, can he keep up? He doesn't have a spectacular stride, but neither did Bergeron.
Right.
So I'm thinking like, okay, so he's getting there. He's doing stuff. I'm like, every time I keep on trying to resist making these comparisons in my head, they keep on happening before my eyes. And I'm thinking, it's no wonder the Bruins insisted this kid came in the Carlo deal.
Yeah.
No wonder. So Toronto's a loaded team. They're loaded for bear. They think this is their year. They might finally be the 2004 Red Sox instead of the 2003 Red Sox, and that's their risk. And maybe he'll be their Blake Wheeler, and maybe the Bruins are going to get a really good player out of this for a lot of years. No pressure.
I knew you were going to say something like that. Yeah, let's just compare him to a Hall of Famer and one of the greatest of all time. No big deal, Fraser Minton. Good luck with that. I do like. I see what you're seeing though. Like as far as good instincts, wins battles, like puts himself in the right place, like smart player, like sees and reads the play really well. Like I see all that stuff. It's gonna have to be a long sort of leap, obviously, to get to that level of impact player for him. And that would mean his development went tremendously well from where it is now to like his mid to late 20s. But like he looks to me, like to your point, like he's going to help them. You know what I mean? Like he looks like he's going to definitely be a player that's going to help. He's going to be there for a while. And it's a great player that they acquired along with the pick for Brandon Carlo. And I do like what he brings to the table. So like all that stuff is good. And that's what it like. Just in general, Mick, this is what you needed and wanted to see out of this Bruins team down the stretch, is at least see some of these young players stepping up and making things happen and showing that they can make plays and that they can be effective at the NHL level, and that maybe they're going to be part of the picture next year and beyond when inevitable changes are coming and it's going to look like a different team next year, like that they are going to be part of that sort of new look and that new group. And I think last night was a good piece of evidence in the positive rather than negative. We have seen a lot of games though where it doesn't look like that's been the case. And Fabian Lysell looked better last night, but I'm still very dubious that he's ever going to be a long-term part of the solution. But at least if he has some games like that, maybe he ups his trade value and he becomes something that another team will say, hey, maybe I'll take a flyer on that guy. Maybe he can help us because he did some things down the stretch for the Bruins. So like it's all positive if he has some good games here in the last handful going into the off season. But just in general, I think it's just one of those, instances where like, you're right. They are starting to play better. The confidence is starting to go up a little bit. I think they're starting to get used to playing together. Like it was inevitable that when they threw all these new players together, it was going to take them a while to gel and to figure it out how they could work as a team unit. And maybe that's what the Bruins had in mind, that they wanted them to like struggle so they would drop lower in the first round. And that's exactly what they've done. But like now it's really interesting. Like that's the drama of these last few games, is that they're going to win too many games to like push them into the bottom of the top 10, where frankly it's a lot more questionable if you're going to get a player that's going to really be an impact player and is going to be, a guy that is really going to help you out. Whereas if they're in the top 5, I think it's pretty good chances you're going to get a guy that's going to be a really good player for you for a long time. Maybe not like Hall of Famer or perennial all-star, but somebody that's going to be a very solid player for you and a solid contributor. The chances are extremely good if he's a top 5 that he's going to be that guy. Top 10, the percentages go down a little bit.
Some of the most hyped drafts don't churn out a bevy of NHL talent. Some of the ones lesser talked about go 7, 10, 15 years down the road. Oh, yeah, he was in that draft. I don't remember that being a big deal. And, it's really hard at age 18.
Yeah, it is.
And this is just, so I mean, the Bruins are in a great position in this draft, and the results generally don't come to fruition for years at a time. And that's okay, because you can't put everything into when you're in a position like they are now. You definitely can't put your eggs into next year's basket.
No.
Everything has to be about the long range, to get the best player available, not the one who's going to get to the NHL quickest, necessarily.
No.
So So yeah, I mean, and nice to see Mason Lohrei. I mean, nice to see Fabian Lysell took a Mason Lohrei pill, and it, and you should pop a couple more there because Mason Lohrei is the poster boy for your recommendation that he play with more reckless abandon and
Yeah.
play to his skills and don't worry about what happens. I
Yep.
mean, if there's ever a time to do that, it's now. And as for the Bruins screwing up their pick with a few more wins, you know what? They've been competing the whole time, and the team can only control what players are in the lineup. And we know at this point that they can't go back and start messing this up and overtly tanking. They were in a legitimate circumstance, and now they're in a situation where those guys are gelling, and there's not a whole lot of runway left, but there's enough to change, their draft position by a few spots pending the lottery.
Yep. Yeah. It'll be
It's a
interesting.
reality we got to deal with.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the next few games. I'm not going to be bullish on them to win any games. Like, I know you're optimistic about the Blackhawks game because of the situation Chicago's in too. I'm not overly bullish on the Bruins in any game to think that they're really going to come out guns a-blazing and take care of business just because of what we've seen. So, we'll see what they have left over the last couple games. But, it'll also be like they're getting their awards prior to the game against Chicago. That's always, something that gets the crowd into it and changes it up for the players and makes it a little more interesting too, the fan awards and stuff. So, that'll be interesting, and that'll, give it a little bit more energy than normal. So it'll be interesting to see how the players turn out for these remaining games. If, like I said, maybe that's the high water mark. That's the real big feel good moment for the rest of the year, or there may be another one or two down the stretch. We'll see. One thing I want to do is take a pause now and talk about Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Join over 10 million users and get started today. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll right in. It's fun and it's super simple. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports, combine your favorite hockey players with players from basketball, baseball, esports, and so much more. Here are some picks for this week. Austin Matthews, more than 10.5 face-off wins. Brock Faber, more than 25 minutes on ice. Nathan Walker, more than 3.5 hits. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Prize Picks also offers Venmo, MasterCard, and Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Let's get into a couple of fan questions here, Mick. This one from 7 Bruins 7. Parker Weatherspoon is turning into a turnover machine, holding on to the puck too long. All the D-men are playing a pair too high. And, this plays into what I mentioned before about maybe some defensemen are sort of playing their way out of, being in the picture anymore. And I think Weatherspoon has served his purpose the last couple of years. They got the most they could out of him. But I think a little bit more extended time here in the second half of the year, playing some extra minutes, playing a bit more in the lineup rather than being in and out because they don't have enough defensemen. I think you've seen some of the flaws in Parker Weatherspoon's game, and he's had some, rough games where he's given the puck up a lot. So that's why I could potentially see a Michael Callahan sliding into maybe the Parker Weatherspoon sort of, role, because I don't think he's going to be sticking around beyond this season. And I could potentially see him like basically replacing him. So, but the truth be, he's speaking truth about all of the defenseman pairs are playing a pair too high because they have to, because Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy aren't there. That's just like the lot in life of the Bruins defensemen for the second half of the year once they lost their number 1 and number 2 D. It is like virtually impossible to consistently win in the NHL if you've lost your top 2 defensemen for the long term.
I agree. I mean, it's just been a situation they've been in for a long time here.
Yeah.
Most teams, Most teams want to have a top 6, a bottom 6, and up front. The Bruins have had a top 3, a bottom 9 most of the season, and now they finally have some chemistry and getting. I mean, it's nice to see them score goals that David Pastrnak was not directly involved in. That finally happened.
I know. What did he have? A stretch of like 11 straight?
Yeah, including the first 2 last night.
Well, that made it 13 then. It got up to 13.
Yeah, so, right. So this had gone on for a while, and I think it was a handful of games too. So, and as far as the left shot situation goes, Mason Lohrei is restricted free agent. So the Bruins are in a situation where they have to make a decision about a player who's not a 20-year-old prospect like Fraser Minton. He's a player who's entering his athletic prime, and he's converted. He was originally a forward, converted to defense. They've obviously encouraged him to develop his skills and make plays and see it through. And it's been, and he's become a minus machine doing so.
He's also the top producer on the back end offensively this season as well.
Well, you have to be to justify your spot on a team when you turn over pucks. And the part I can see him playing a much better game, puck protecting game next season.
Yeah,
my hairy eyeball is going to be on how he plays when the opponent has the puck, and that's because I feel like now, granted, when you do have Hampus Lindholm back playing and you got Zadorov established now, that he's going to be playing a protected pairing, protected matchups, limited minutes, and opportunistic zone starts, etc. So he'll get his minutes that way. So I think they're going to go forward with this guy as an RFA, which means that the question is Wotherspoon is now become a journeyman NHLer on their team, and he'll find a new home somewhere and get a chance to compete for a job. Callahan, you're right. Their preference is going to be to try to keep him around and play in that role. Will that be enough?
I think that would be perfect for him, to be honest with you.
I don't know. I think I like his game more. I think his speed is really good. I think he's a big body. He seems to really make an effort to adhere so stringently to solid mindset. So for me, this experience that he's getting right now is still so fresh and raw that I feel like he's going to be an NHLer. I really believe that this kid is going to be strong.
Even if you're a 7th defenseman, Mick, you're still an NHLer. Like, he's definitely, I think, that guy.
I guess I have a higher. I guess my jury is nowhere near the courtroom right now where it concerns his ceiling. I like it. I like watching him play. So
and there's nothing to see
where it goes.
Yeah, there's nothing saying if they penciled him in as the 7th D to start next season that he doesn't turn into a bottom pairing defenseman, a second pair, like, you know what I mean? Once you're invited to the party, what you do with it is what you do with it. He could be able to play himself into a bigger role. I just think that is what makes sense to me, especially with the decor they have right now and the returning pieces that they have.
Yeah,
it would seem to me he would make the most sense to, sign him 2 years, low money, and have him like penciled in as your 7th D to start the year, and then see where it goes from there. Like, I agree with you.
Assuming that's all his market is. Yeah. Assuming that that's the market right now for him.
Well, I
mean, pro scouts, the way they watch, I remember being at a Providence Bruins game many moons ago after John Roloff had been in the NHL with the Bruins, had made his famous cut in front of the net in '95 at the Meadowlands. And Randy McKay pokes his stick, and the puck goes underneath Blaine Locker. The whole place goes nuts. And the Brian Sutter era is one game away from being over. And
Blaine Locker, rest in peace.
Yes,
love that guy.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. But Roloff kicked around a little bit in the minors after that, and there was a game he played in Providence one night that I happened to go see the P Bruins play. I might have been during the 96-97 season. And I just thought Roloff was basically Scott Stevens in that game. Now, granted, it's the American Hockey League, but he was a wrecking ball of a player. Any puck he wanted to take from somebody, he took it. Any puck he wanted to advance, he advanced it. Anybody he wanted to separate from the puck, he did it like he was a dad playing with toddlers, and he just commanded the game out there. And I went to the Bruins game a couple nights later, and my friends and sitting over the Zamboni, and Cap Rader was there, and Cap must have been at the game. He turns to me and goes, "Who did you like in that game?" And I said, "Well, to be honest," and I guess you don't know how this is going to be received, but you say, "I really thought Roloff was good." And he goes, "I agree with you." And actually, now I'm remembering I knew Cap was in the building because I saw Roloff after the game, and I told him Cap Rader was in the building tonight. He saw you play this hockey game.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if the Sharks talk to you. Sure enough, they did.
Yep.
And they brought him to camp, but he didn't stick because they didn't have any room for him. They were loaded that year, so they had all the D they needed, and but he was recommended, and they brought him in, but every once in a while you see a player who needs more time than defense takes a while. It's like defense is like fine wine, baby.
Well, and that's why I'm patient with Mason Lowry. Like, that is exactly the reason why I would be extremely patient with that guy, because the talent is so high level for him to be like a special kind of defenseman if he can, really like figure out the other parts of the game and hone them in and get to that balance. And sometimes it takes years to get to that balance between your play away from the puck, your play with the puck, and all that. Sometimes it takes those guys a long time to really sort of figure that out and figure out the way that works best for them, to your point. But you're right. It's defenseman is the hardest position, I think, in hockey, because of the decisions you have to make between offense and defense in a split second that can absolutely kneecap your team if you make the wrong decision.
That's right. You can make a really good goalie look pretty bad on a regular basis if your decisions are not good ones from the defense position.
Yep. It can kill you.
It bugs me, by the way, just as an aside, it drives me bananas that defensemen don't get consideration for the Hart Trophy from the PHWA.
Yep.
It bugs me. I know both of us had Chara in our top 5 that year, and we heard a raft of crap about it. That was year Taylor Hall won it.
Yep.
And I really thought that Z's impact on the Bruins that year was tremendous. Yeah. And that without him, they would have been toast. McAvoy was playing his first full pro season. And the Bruins had a great year. They had a really good season. They didn't have the record that the Lightning did, and they wound up losing to them in the second round. But that was really a great year for Chara at that age, especially for him to impact the Bruins the way he did. And I felt like he deserved a spot in the top 5. I think I had him 3rd. And I felt like, there's a few different guys that fall in the Taylor Hall category. And I can't remember who my vote. I probably voted McKinnon, the Hart, but I have a tough time giving it to a winger. You better be generational and knocking it out. Yeah. You better be Cam Neely, Frank Mahovlich.
I absolutely 100%. I'd have to look up my ballot from that year, but I absolutely 100% did not have Taylor Hall as the number 1 choice on my ballot. There's zero shot that I did. I just think and I thought this when he came to the Bruins. He was one of those players that you saw Hart Trophy winning, blah, 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 Taylor Hall. And you're like, yeah, but he's not really that level of player. He had a magical year with the Devils. It was really good. He helped carry them into the playoffs. No question about it. But I just didn't think when you stacked him up to some of the other players that were there, the greatness just wasn't as high a factor for him as there were for other players. I just didn't buy into, what I saw. But I understand the voting and him, pushing that Devils team that really wasn't that talented into the playoffs. So I get why he was voted.
Yeah, I think I thought he was deserving as well. Believe it or not, I left him off my top 5. But I probably had 3 guys in there who I felt eeny, meeny, miny, mo about it. Yep. And for some reason, I preferred the ones that I preferred, and they're the ones who made it, and he didn't, and he wound up winning the thing.
He did.
And I think that was the
Well,
last
there was
year.
a big push.
I think that was the last year I got a
remember
vote.
seeing a big push among certain media people, like Taylor Hall for Hart. Like there was no question there was a big push for
And
him.
I actually love watching that guy play. He to me, he's a modern day Bobby Hull. He
Yeah.
He's a bit of a golden jet, and the way he can skate, he's so powerful. He's a joy to watch, and I've always rooted for him to finally make it to the top, because I feel like there's a lot of burden that comes with that kind of natural ability.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's been honest with the game. I don't feel like he's skirted the game. I feel like he's played hard. But I do feel like it's difficult for him sometimes to achieve chemistry with players. And as a result, he looks aloof. I don't think he's aloof. I just think that he just has not, it's been rare for him to really have that kind of a good. So he had that magical year in New Jersey, and I'm happy for him that he won it. I just felt like it was incredibly close between about a half a dozen guys, and he was under the half dozen I gave that consideration to. But I took a lot of crap for not singing with the choir that year.
I think I did too. All right, let's take a break really quick to talk about game time. With the final stretch for the Bruins, the NBA playoffs right around the corner, now is the time to dig into the Game Time ticket app if you need tickets of any kind. The app is super easy to use and has tons of great features for sports, comedy, concerts, theater, and all kinds of other tickets. Great features at Game Time. Priority Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff and only gives you good deals. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, comedy, concerts, theater, etc. All-in pricing, you toggle this feature and it shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Seat Views gives you a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. My favorite, the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. You can't go wrong with that. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Mick?
Game time.
Game time. That's right.
A little Johnny Lydon in there. I got a little Johnny Rotten accent in my Game Time there.
There you go. I didn't know there was going to be a Johnny Rotten reference today.
The bug eyes, I could be wrong. I could be right.
All right. Kip Wingirter says, that was a good overall 60-minute game of Bruins hockey. The young kids look good, as did the veterans. Thanks for making my night. Let's build this team with some quality veterans in the offseason. That brings up a good question, Mick. What do you think are the biggest keys to maybe retooling and getting this team back into a wild card spot next year, as far as what they need to bring in, what type of players, younger veterans, older veterans, what position, like what your master plan, if you could add some pieces this summer, what do you think the most important ones would be to get a quick retool job going, assuming that Swayman bounces back, assuming that Hampus Lindholm is fully healthy, same thing with McAvoy,
Right.
like assuming those things all go right, and let's say they pick like Jay Leach to be the coach, or Mujanel, or one of those guys to be that new head coach of the Bruins, one of the guys that's in-house, sort of.
Uh-huh. So in order to compete next year, I think the very first move is you gotta sign Yoki Haru.
Yeah, I agree.
I just feel like he's a legit top four, perfect complement to Zadorov, and I feel like that is a fantastic acquisition that they made that flew under the radar. And this kid is a late first round pick. He's entering his athletic prime. He is UFA. He made $3.1 million this year. So they got to get him in, because if they don't, then you got to decide what you're doing at right defense, and what's out there, I don't know.
Right.
Number two, I just feel like the center position, they're flooding their own market with centers right now, and trying to figure out who's going to play for this team next year is going to be a competitive process, Matt Poitras. And trying to figure out what happens to Pavel Zacha as a result. Does he kick back over to left wing, because the team needs wingers, but it's hard to decide. The complex part for me is trying to decide who besides Elias Lindholm and Casey Middlestat are going to play center for me. And if that's going to be a competitive thing between Fraser Minton and Matt Poitras to see who's going to seize that third line center spot, And if Middlestad's going to play up to a top 6 spot, is he gonna play there? I mean, it's funny how one win with an explosive offensive night can suddenly make you feel like we only need 3 guys instead of 8 or 10, not 10. It's just watching that game and thinking like, oh, here we go. I feel myself being pulled into belief in this group. And
Yeah.
we may not have seen the last of all the action that's going to happen with this team this summer, and how much this team is going to evolve in the next 3 years. So from a starting point, but if you say your scenario you set me with is let's go back, let's run it back with what we got under contract right now, and what else are we going to do? Number one, you got to sign Yogi. Number two, you got to identify who for sure are going to play center for you next season. So I'm thinking obviously Lindholm, Middlestat, and then that Zacha can play center if you need it. He can play left wing if you need it. And Geeky can play any forward position if you need it. And so that he's going to, now granted, you don't want to do to Geeky what Monty did with him and Frederick at the beginning of this season that's about to end. Both of those guys, neither one of them had a home. They didn't have a line. They didn't have anything consistent in camp. And I remember asking Monty during camp, is this because you think so highly of the way they can play and fit in with anybody that you're waiting to see what's needed? And he said, that's it. That's what I'm doing. And I don't think either player responded well to it. I thought I agreed with him in the moment. I thought this is really great how he's looking at this. And then I found out how wrong I was, because maybe it's because of all the other mitigating circumstances of the team that also hurt them. But Geeky took a while to get going, so it's amazing he's got 30 goals.
Geeky didn't look right at the beginning of the year. Something did not look right with him in the way that he was playing. Frederick, I just think he had a bad season. Like, I from the very beginning, I think the uncertainty of the contract, I think maybe he knows where he wants to play as a UFA, and it wasn't Boston. And I think maybe that factored into it for him too, as to, maybe the conflicted way that he played sometimes. Like, I thought there was a lot going on with Trent Frederick, and he's the kind of player that there's a lot going on around him. It's probably not good for him. Like, he's a very, I think, simple guy that needs simple sort of directives of how to play, where he's playing, what he's doing. And he operates best under those circumstances. Geeky just didn't, the second effort and third effort wasn't there at the start of the season. Like, the way that he usually plays was not there at all.
He looked hesitant.
Yeah. And that's not his, that is not what we've seen out of him when he's at his best. He's in such a good place now. It's interesting how much what you're talking about might have played into that for both of those guys, for sure. But Geeky, to be honest, Geeky was playing top 6 from the very beginning of the year. They put him in a good spot. Geeky was given a lot of leeway and a lot of, kudos and a lot of expectations were there. Maybe that was part of it, as he was feeling the pressure of that. But he was in a little bit, Trent Frederick did feel like he was a little lost and all over the place, and there wasn't really a home for him. Geeky less so. I think Geeky, they had an idea of what they wanted him to be all year, and he finally in the second half of the year lived up to what they thought he was going to be in the first half. But interesting just in general when you talk about players and where they slot in and finding a role and all that stuff, and how important that is to them having success.
Yeah, it is. And right now, Casey Middlestat's going through that. He's a centerman. That's what he is. They look at him and they're saying, man, could we possibly kind of farm up the best version of Casey Middlestat, and he'll remind us on certain nights of David Krejci, because he's got that kind of vision. He's got those kind of hands. And like Krejci, he's a solid on his feet, but he's not, really fast point A to point B. So right. He has to. His speed has. I think he's a better
skater than Krejci. Middlestat. I think Middlestat is actually a pretty good skater. I watching him scoot around sometimes. He's got pretty good speed. I never thought Krejci was that great of a skater. He was adequate, and then he could slow the game down and make you play at his pace. But he was definitely somebody that I thought was that's why I've always thought the Patra comparison with Krejci was pretty apt. Because I think that's the high end of what Patra could hope to be, is a Krejci type player, where definitely not a burner, definitely not an explosive skater by any means, but still could get where he needed to get to and create. Middlestat, I think you see explosive strides out of him, great crossovers.
I don't see. I see better form than Poitras. Poitras's got a weird stride where I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I would love to see their skating coach kind of mess with him a little bit and see if they can get his. I'd like to see him be a much better skater in 5 years than he is right now. Adam Oates was a better skater at 35 than he was at 25.
Yeah,
and that's a guy who really worked on it throughout his career, and he had to because he wasn't big, he wasn't thick, and so. But he was a really good battler, especially with his head. So Mittelstadt needs to, grow the way Adam Oates grew as a player in the league and be better incrementally with every passing year. The Bruins need to get that out of him in order to make that a good trade-off for Charlie Coyle. Granted,
no doubt.
Mittelstadt has the beat of his career remaining. Coyle's on the back nine. So it makes a lot of sense what happened there. Earlier in the year, I thought Coyle was going to go to the Rangers for Chris Kreider, and that was before Chris Drury's edict. But but that never happened. And so because once Charlie Coyle, when the Bruins need centermen and Charlie Coyle's not playing center, you knew something was going on. So,
no, totally. And I do think you'll see guys like Mittelstadt probably moved around to the wing too. Like there's a long time Bruins philosophy that if you can play center, you can play wing. And I do think it'll be interesting, to your point, how the center picture shakes out next year. I would imagine if they get a top 5 pick and they draft a center, they are not going to be like trying to get another long-term center in free agency or trade or whatever. And that's probably for the best because they, missed on Elias Lindholm with the contract that they gave him, trying to acquire a number 1 center in free agency. And I think it's a bit of a fool's errand to try to solve that kind of a problem in free agency. You have to create your own player and develop your own player for that kind of role, or maybe trade for somebody if it's like if you give up a ton and you can get a really good high-end young veteran player. But it's hard to get those guys. Those guys don't become available very often. So it'll be interesting to see what they do and how they approach that with the center position, knowing they really still have no clear-cut number 1 center on this team.
They love their hybrids.
But it's also an NHL where wings are starting to drive lines instead of centers too, I guess.
Yeah, that's
true. That's kind of a
March or so. Yeah.
Yeah. And Pasternak's a perfect example of that. All right, let's thank our sponsors again. But before we take off, download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Let's also thank our friends at Game Time. Anytime you need tickets, concerts, comedy, theater, sports, all across the board. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Mick?
Game time.
Game time. Those are the gold Boston Bruins playoff towels we will not be seeing later on this month because they will not be in the playoffs.
I'm going to pass this one over myself.
There you go. There it is. Passed right over. All right, Mick, thank you very much for joining us. Everybody else out there, thanks for listening. We'll see you at the rink.